When Carmen Rodriguez walked into Michael Jordan's Charlotte office after 37 years, she carried more than just memories. In her worn leather purse was a yellowed envelope, sealed since 1987, containing words that would reveal the shocking truth about Jordan's $200 million charitable legacy. The basketball legend thought he knew his own story. He was wrong. What Carmen was about to show him would prove that 6 weeks of young love had secretly shaped 4 decades of his life, touching thousands of children he'd never met. The letter contained promises he'd forgotten making and secrets that would leave the world's most confident athlete completely speechless. Some words are too powerful to remain buried forever. The March wind whistled through the tall glass windows of Michael Jordan's private office in Charlotte, North Carolina. At 61, the basketball legend still cut an impressive figure behind his massive oak desk. His dark suit was perfectly pressed. His famous hands, still large and strong, held a stack of Charlotte Hornets financial reports. Michael rubbed his eyes and glanced at his watch. 3:30 in the afternoon. Another long day of running his basketball team. Some days he missed the simple life of just playing the game he loved. Now everything was meetings, money, and decisions that affected hundreds of people. His assistant Jennifer knocked softly on the door. She had worked for him for 8 years and knew better than to interrupt unless it was important. "Come in," Michael called out. Jennifer stepped inside, looking nervous. Her usually perfect blonde hair seemed a little messy. She clutched her tablet against her chest like a shield. "Mr. Jordan, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment." Michael frowned. People tried to visit him every day. Fans, business people, reporters. Jennifer knew to turn them all away unless they were on his schedule. "You know the rules, Jennifer. No unscheduled visits." "Sir, she says her name is Carmen Rodriguez. She says you knew her a long time ago. She seems different from the usual people who come by." The pen in Michael's hand stopped moving. Carmen Rodriguez. The name hit him like a punch to the stomach. Images flashed through his mind. A young woman with kind brown eyes, a small apartment in Chicago. The smell of coffee in the morning. It had been 37 years. 37 years since he had seen Carmen. She was part of a different life. A different Michael Jordan. Back when he was just a young player trying to make it in the NBA. Before the championships. Before the fame. Before he became a legend. "What does she look like?" Michael asked quietly. Jennifer checked her notes. "About 58 years old. Brown hair with some gray. She's wearing a simple blue dress. She's very polite, but she seems determined. She said she has something that belongs to you." Michael's heart started beating faster. Something that belongs to me, he thought. What could Carmen possibly have after all these years? Where is she now? In the main lobby. Security is with her, but she's not causing any trouble. She's just sitting quietly with her purse in her lap. Michael stood up slowly. His 6'6" frame cast a long shadow across the office. He walked to the window and looked down at the parking lot below. Cars moved back and forth like tiny toys. People walked quickly, busy with their own lives. None of them knew that his past had just walked through his front door. "Sir?" Jennifer asked. "What should I tell her?" Michael turned around. His face showed the same focus he once had before a big game, the same look that had helped him win 6 NBA championships. "Bring her up. But clear my schedule for the next hour." "And Jennifer?" "Yes, sir. Make sure we're not disturbed. No phone calls, no visitors, nothing." Jennifer nodded and left the room. Michael heard her heels clicking down the hallway, getting quieter and quieter. Alone now, Michael sat back down in his chair. He tried to focus on the papers in front of him, but the words seemed to dance around on the page. Carmen Rodriguez. He hadn't spoken that name out loud in decades. What could she want after all this time? They had dated for only 6 weeks in 1987. It was a small part of his life, but somehow it had stayed with him all these years. Carmen was different from everyone else he knew back then. She didn't care that he was becoming famous. She treated him like a regular person. Michael remembered their last night together. How sad she had looked when she told him she was moving to Denver. How young they both were. How impossible their situation seemed. He had written her a letter that night. A letter full of feelings he couldn't say out loud. He had sealed it and given it to her. making her promise something. But what? The memory was fuzzy now, like looking through fog. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. The door opened, and Jennifer stepped aside. Behind her stood a woman Michael would have recognized anywhere, even after 37 years. Carmen Rodriguez walked into his office with the same quiet confidence she had always had. Her brown hair was shorter now, with streaks of silver that caught the afternoon light. Small lines around her eyes showed the years that had passed, but her smile was exactly the same. Warm and real, and completely unimpressed by where she was or who he had become. She wore a simple blue dress and carried an old leather purse. Her wedding ring caught the light as she gripped the purse handle tightly. "Hello, Michael," she said softly. Her voice was exactly as he remembered it. Michael stood up slowly. Words seemed stuck in his throat. Finally, he managed to speak. "Carmen, I can't believe you're here." She looked around his large office, taking in the championship trophies, the framed jerseys, the photos with presidents and celebrities. Then her eyes came back to his face. "You've done well for yourself," she said with a small smile. "Carmen." She held up her hand gently to stop him from talking. Then she reached into her leather purse and pulled out something that made Michael's world stop spinning. It was an envelope, old and yellow with age. His name was written on the front in handwriting he had etched as his own. The envelope was sealed, exactly as he had left it 37 years ago. "I have something that belongs to you," Carmen said, holding out the letter. Michael stared at the envelope. Suddenly he was 24 years old again, sitting in his small apartment in Chicago, pouring his heart out onto paper, writing words he couldn't say, making promises he wasn't sure he could keep. His hands shook slightly as he looked at Carmen. She had kept a letter all these years. But why was she bringing it back now? "You kept it," he whispered. Carmen nodded. "I made you a promise, Michael. But I think it's time you had this back." Michael reached out slowly and took the envelope from her hands. It felt light as a feather, but somehow heavier than anything he had ever held. What had his young, scared, hopeful self written in this letter? And why, after 37 years, was Carmen finally ready to give it back to him? Michael held the envelope in his hands, and suddenly felt like he was falling backward through time. The fancy office around him seemed to fade away. The trophies, the expensive furniture, the view of Charlotte, all of it disappeared. Instead, he was back in Chicago. It was April 1987, and he was 24 years old. Chicago. April. The rain pounded against the windows of Lincoln Elementary School on Chicago's South Side. Inside the gym, dozens of children ran around playing games and eating pizza. This was supposed to be a fun day for kids who didn't have much fun in their lives. Michael Jordan stood in the corner watching. He was already getting famous. People on the street knew his name. Kids asked for his autograph. But he still felt awkward at events like this. A reporter had asked him to come. "It's good for your image," his agent had said. "Show people you care about kids." Michael did care about kids, but he wasn't sure he was good at talking to them. On the basketball court, he knew exactly what to do. Here he felt lost. "Are you going to stand in that corner all day?" Michael turned around. A young woman with brown hair and kind eyes was looking at him. She wore jeans and a simple red sweater. In her hands, she carried art supplies and juice boxes. "I'm sorry," Michael said. "The kids keep looking at you. They want to meet you, but you're hiding over here like you're scared of them." Michael felt his face get warm. "I'm not scared. I just don't want to get in the way." The woman laughed. It was a real laugh, not the fake kind he heard from people who wanted something from him. "Trust me, you won't get in the way. These kids need positive role models. Come on." She walked toward a group of children who were trying to make paper airplanes. Michael followed her. "Everyone, I want you to meet someone special," she said to the kids. "This is Michael Jordan. He plays basketball for the Chicago Bulls." A small boy with big eyes looked up at Michael. "Are you really tall because you eat your vegetables?" Michael smiled. This was better than he expected. "I eat my vegetables, but I think I'm tall because my parents are tall too. My mom says I should eat vegetables," a little girl said. "But they taste yucky." "What vegetables do you not like?" Michael asked, sitting down on the floor with the children. For the next hour, Michael forgot about basketball. He helped kids make paper airplanes. He tied shoes that had come untied. He listened to stories about pets and teachers and broken toys. The young woman with the kind eyes worked beside him the whole time. She was a natural with the children. They loved her. Michael could see why. "You're good at this," she told him as they cleaned up paper scraps. "Thanks. I was nervous at first." "I could tell. But you did great. The kids really liked you." "What about you?" Michael asked. "Do you work here?" "I'm a teacher at this school. 5th grade. My name is Carmen Rodriguez." "Nice to meet you, Carmen." "Michael Jordan." "I know." She smiled. "But here, you're just someone who helped make paper airplanes." That was the moment. Michael knew Carmen was different. She knew who he was. But she didn't care about his fame. She cared about the kids. She cared about doing good work. She treated him like a regular person. "Would you like to get some coffee sometime?" he asked. Carmen looked surprised. "You want to have coffee with me?" "Yes. If that's okay." She thought for a moment. "Okay. But somewhere quiet. I don't like crowds." They met 3 days later at a small cafe near her apartment. Carmen lived in a tiny place with books, birthware, and plants on every windowsill. She made her own coffee and talked about her students like they were her own children. "Tell me about teaching," Michael said. Carmen's eyes lit up. "These kids have so little, Michael. Some of them don't have enough food at home. Some of their parents work 3 jobs just to pay rent. But they're so smart and funny and full of hope." "That sounds hard." "It is hard. But it's also the most important thing I could do. If I can help one kid believe in themselves, if I can teach one child to read better, then everything is worth it." Michael had never met anyone like Carmen. Basketball players talked about winning games and making money. His friends talked about parties and getting famous. Carmen talked about changing lives. They started seeing each other regularly. Michael would pick her up after school, and they would walk through the city. Carmen showed him parts of Chicago he had never seen. Poor neighborhoods where kids played basketball on courts with bent rims and no nets. "Those could be future NBA players," Carmen said, watching some teenagers play. "Maybe. But they need more than just basketball skills." "What do you mean?" Michael thought about it. "They need someone to believe in them. They need education. They need chances." Carmen looked at him with new respect. "You really understand, don't you?" Those 6 weeks were the happiest Michael had ever been. With Carmen, he wasn't a basketball star. He was just Michael. A young man trying to figure out his life. Carmen came to some of his games. She sat in the cheap seats and cheered when he made good plays. After games, while other players went to fancy parties, Michael would go to Carmen's apartment. They would eat simple dinners and talk for hours. "Do you ever get tired of all the attention?" Carmen asked one night. "Sometimes. It's getting bigger. Every day. More reporters, more fans, more people who want things from me. That must be lonely." Michael looked at her. She was curled up on her small couch reading papers her students had written. She looked so peaceful and content. "It is lonely," he said. "Except when I'm with you." But even as he said it, Michael knew their time was running out. His basketball career was taking off. The Bulls were getting better. The media attention was growing every week. And Carmen had dreams too. She had applied for teaching jobs in other cities. She wanted to work with kids who needed help the most. She wasn't going to change her plans just because she was dating a basketball player. The end came sooner than either of them wanted. Present day. Michael's office. Michael blinked and found himself back in his Charlotte office. Carmen was sitting in the chair across from his desk, watching him with those same kind eyes. "You were remembering," she said softly. "How could you tell? You had the same look you used to get when you were thinking hard about something important." Michael set the letter down on his desk carefully, like it might break. "Carmen, why are you here? After all these years, why now?" Carmen was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. It was old and faded, but Michael could see what it was. The two of them at that charity event, surrounded by children with big smiles. "My husband died 4 years ago," she said quietly. "I'm sorry," Michael said. He meant it. David was a good man. A teacher like me. Before he died, he found this photo in my jewelry box. "Along with your letter."
A little. He knew I had dated someone famous before we met. He wasn't jealous. David was secure in himself. Carmen smiled sadly. But he was curious about the letter. Why I kept it. Why I never opened it.
Michael felt his heart speed up. What did you tell him? I told him about the promise I made to you. That I would only open it if I ever doubted what we had was real. And you never doubted? Carmen shook her head. Never. Those 6 weeks changed my life, Michael. They showed me what it meant to care about someone completely, even though we went different ways. I never forgot that feeling. Michael stared at the sealed envelope. What had his young self written? What promises had he made? What feelings had he confessed? And why, after keeping the letter safe for 37 years, was Carmen finally ready to give it back? Chicago, May. The small apartment felt even smaller that night. Carmen sat on her couch with acceptance letters spread across the coffee table. 3 different school districts wanted her: Denver, Phoenix, and Seattle. All of them offered her chances to work with kids who needed help the most. Michael paced back and forth near the window. His long legs made the tiny living room seem like a cage. Outside, spring rain tapped against the glass. When do you have to decide? He asked. By Friday. Carmen's voice was soft but firm. I'm leaning toward Denver. They have a program for kids whose families just moved to America. I could really make a difference there. Michael stopped pacing. He sat down next to her on the couch, careful not to disturb the letters. What about us? He asked. Carmen looked at him with sad eyes. Michael, look around. Really look. Michael glanced around the apartment. Books everywhere. Student papers stacked on the kitchen table. A small TV that sometimes worked. A couch she had bought used from a neighbor. I see you're home, he said. Now look at your life. Team meetings, practice, games, interviews. Fancy restaurants, nice cars, expensive clothes. People following you everywhere you go. That stuff doesn't matter to me. Maybe not to you, but it matters to the world around you. Your life is getting bigger every day, Michael. Mine is staying small and focused. That's not good or bad. It's just different. Michael felt something breaking inside his chest. Are you saying we can't make this work? Carmen reached over and took his hand. I'm saying we both have dreams that matter. You're gonna be something amazing in basketball. I can feel it. And I'm gonna help kids learn and grow. We can't ask each other to give up those dreams. I don't want you to give up teaching. I would never ask that. And I would never ask you to give up basketball. But Michael, your world is changing so fast. Sometimes when I watch you at games, I see how people look at you. Like you're not even human anymore. Like you're something they own. Michael knew she was right. The attention was growing every week. Reporters wanted to know everything about his life. Fans followed him to restaurants. Even walking down the street was becoming difficult. With you, I feel normal, he said quietly. They sat in silence for several minutes. The rain kept falling outside. Finally, Michael stood up. I need to write something down. He went to Carmen's small kitchen table and found paper and a pen. For the next 20 minutes, he wrote without stopping. His hand moved quickly across the pages, like he was afraid he would forget what he wanted to say. Carmen watched him from the couch. She could see the concentration on his face. The same focus he had when he played basketball. When he finished, Michael folded the papers and put them in an envelope. He wrote Carmen on the front in careful letters. What is that? She asked. Michael sealed the envelope and brought it back to the couch. Everything I can't say right now. Everything I want you to know about how I feel. About what these weeks have meant to me. Carmen took the envelope, but she didn't open it. Don't read it now, Michael said quickly. Promise me something. What? Only open this letter if you ever doubt that what we had was real. If you ever think I was just playing games with you, or that this didn't matter to me, then read it. But not before. Carmen looked at the sealed envelope in her hands. Michael, I would never doubt. Promise me. Please. Something in his voice made Carmen nod. I promise. But why? Because right now, this is perfect. We both know how we feel. We both know this is real. But life is gonna pull us in different directions. Years from now, you might wonder if any of this actually happened. If I actually cared about you the way I do right now. And you think this letter will remind me? I think this letter has my heart in it. The real me. Not the basketball player. Not the guy on TV. Just Michael sitting in your kitchen at midnight trying to tell you things I've never told anyone. Carmen held the envelope carefully. What if I never doubt? What if I always remember? Then you'll never need to open it. And that would be okay too. 2 days later, Carmen drove Michael to the airport. She was flying to Denver the next morning to look for an apartment. They both knew this was goodbye. I'm going to miss you, Michael said, as they sat in his car outside the terminal. I'm going to miss you too. Will you call me sometime? Let me know how you're doing? Carmen shook her head sadly. I think clean breaks are better. We both need to focus on what's next. Michael understood, but it hurt anyway. Take care of those kids in Denver. Take care of yourself. And Michael? Yeah? When you become the greatest basketball player in the world, remember that some things matter more than winning games. Like being the kind of person who helps children believe in themselves. Like you did at that school event. Like you've been doing with me. They hugged goodbye in the airport parking lot. Michael watched Carmen walk into the terminal with her small suitcase and her big dreams. She didn't look back. That night, alone in his apartment, Michael wondered if he had made a mistake. Should he have tried harder to make their relationship work? Should he have asked her to stay? But deep down, he knew Carmen was right. Their worlds were too different. She needed to follow her path, and he needed to follow his. 3 months later, the Chicago Bulls made the playoffs for the first time in Michael's career. As he ran onto the court for the first playoff game, he thought about Carmen somewhere in Denver, probably grading papers or planning lessons for her new students. He played the best basketball of his life that night. Present day. Michael's office. You never called, Michael said, looking at Carmen across his desk. No, I thought it would be too hard. It would have been. You were right about that too. Carmen shifted in her chair. David used to ask me about the letter sometimes. Especially near the end, when he was sick. He said maybe some promises were meant to be broken. What do you think? I think David was a wise man. He said 37 years was long enough to carry someone else's secrets. Michael picked up the envelope again. His name on the front looked strange in his own young handwriting. Carmen, you still haven't told me why you're here now. Why today? Carmen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I watched your documentary, The Last Dance. I saw you talking about regrets. About people you lost touch with. About wondering if you made the right choices. And I realized maybe you had doubts too. Maybe you wondered if what we had was real. Or if it was just a young man being confused by fame and pressure. Michael felt his throat tighten. So you came to give me the letter back. I came to give you the choice. You can open it and remember what you felt back then. Or you can leave it sealed and trust that we both know the truth. What if the letter revealed secrets that were better left buried? Michael turned the envelope over in his hands. The paper was soft from age, like old fabric. He could feel the weight of the folded papers inside. 37 years of secrets, waiting. I need to think about this, he said finally. Carmen nodded. I understand. This is a lot to process. Tell me about your life, Carmen. What happened after Denver? Carmen's face softened. You really want to know? I do. All of it. Carmen's story. 19. Carmen settled into her chair and began to speak. As she talked, Michael could picture her life unfolding, year by year. Denver was everything I hoped it would be. The school district put me in charge of their English as a second language program. I worked with kids whose families had just come to America. Some from Mexico, some from Vietnam, some from Somalia. She smiled, remembering. Their eyes were so bright, Michael. They wanted to learn everything. How to read English, how to write their names, how to fit in with the other kids. I felt like I was helping build bridges between two worlds. Michael found himself leaning forward. That sounds incredible. It was hard work. Some days I stayed at school until 8 o'clock, helping kids with homework their parents couldn't understand. But seeing a child read their first English sentence, there's no feeling like it. Carmen told him about her small apartment near the school. How she learned some Spanish so she could talk to parents who were nervous about their children's education. How she started a Saturday program for families, teaching both kids and adults together. I met David in my second year there. Carmen continued. He taught fourth grade at the same school. He was kind and patient, good with kids who were struggling. We became friends first, then something more. Michael felt a small stab of something. Not jealousy, exactly. More like sadness for the path not taken. David understood my work. He never asked me to choose between him and my students. He knew how important teaching was to me. They married in 1991, Carmen explained. A small wedding with mostly other teachers as guests. They bought a tiny house near the school and filled it with books and plants. We tried to have children right away, but it took 8 years. Maria was born in 1999, then James in 2002. They grew up thinking all parents were teachers. They thought everyone spent their evenings grading papers and planning lessons. They're both helping people, just like we taught them, Carmen said proudly. Over the years, Carmen had moved up in the school system. She became a principal, then an assistant superintendent, but she never stopped working directly with kids who needed extra help. What about David's death? Michael asked gently. Carmen's eyes grew sad. Heart attack. Completely sudden. He was 54, healthy, active. He coached the school's soccer team. One morning he was drinking coffee and reading lesson plans, and then he was gone. The grief in her voice was still fresh, even after 4 years. I'm so sorry, Carmen. David was my best friend for 30 years. Losing him felt like losing half of myself. Maria and James were amazing, but they had their own lives to build. Carmen explained how she had retired early after David's death. She couldn't focus on her work the same way. The empty house felt too quiet without his voice calling out funny stories about his students. That's when I found your documentary on Netflix, she said. The kids were visiting for David's birthday. We always watched it together, even though he was gone. Maria put on The Last Dance because she remembered me mentioning I knew you once. Michael remembered that documentary, 10 episodes about his final season with the Chicago Bulls. It had brought back so many memories, good and bad. What did you think when you watched it? I saw you talking about the people you'd lost touch with over the years. About wondering if you'd made the right choices. You seemed lonely, even with all your success. Michael's story. You want to know about my life? Michael asked. Carmen nodded. Michael stood up and walked to his window. Charlotte spread out below them, busy and full of life. After you left, basketball became everything. The Bulls made the playoffs that year for the first time since I joined the team. I felt like we were finally building something special. The next few years had been a whirlwind, Michael explained. More success, more attention, more pressure. His face appeared on magazine covers and TV commercials. Kids around the world wanted to be like Mike. In 1991, we won our first championship. I remember holding that trophy and thinking about you for just a second, wondering if you were watching on TV somewhere. 3 more championships followed. Then Michael retired to play baseball, then came back to basketball for 3 more championships. 6 total, just like Carmen had predicted. But success came with costs. 2 divorces, strained relationships with teammates. The pressure to be perfect all the time, never being able to go anywhere without being recognized. I married Juanita in 1989, Michael said. We had 3 kids together, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine. But the marriage was hard. All the travel, all the attention, all the pressure. We divorced in 2. He married again in 2013 to a model named Yvette Prieto. They had twin daughters, Victoria and Isabel. This marriage was happier, but Michael sometimes still felt like he was performing even at home. People see the championships, the money, the businesses. They don't see how hard it is to trust anyone when you're famous. Everyone wants something from you. Michael bought the Charlotte Hornets basketball team in 2010. It gave him something to focus on after retiring from playing. But running a team was different from playing for one. Some days I miss just being able to play ball without thinking about profits and salary caps and media coverage. He had started his charitable foundation years earlier, Michael explained. At first it was mostly about giving money to good causes. But over time it had grown into something bigger. Schools, scholarships, youth programs. Carmen looked surprised. 100 million? Kids matter. Carmen, They always mattered to me. Even when I was young and didn't know how to show it. Michael sat back down at his desk. The letter lay between them like a bridge across 37 years. So that's my life, he said. Success, failure, loneliness, purpose. All mixed together. And regrets? Carmen asked softly. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, plenty of regrets. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who had built meaningful lives on different paths. Both had helped others. Both had faced loss and disappointment. Both had wondered about the road not taken. Finally, Carmen spoke again. The letter, Michael. David used to say that some secrets get heavier with time. Maybe it's time to put this one down. Michael looked at the envelope again. His young handwriting seemed to stare back at him. What had he been so desperate to tell Carmen that night in 1987? What feelings had he poured onto paper that he couldn't speak out loud? And after 37 years of carrying those unread words, was he finally brave enough to face what his younger self had wanted her to know? Michael picked up the envelope one more time. The yellow paper felt fragile, like it might fall apart if he handled it too roughly. Carmen, before I decide about this letter, I need to understand something. Why did David think you should open it? What changed his mind after all those years? Carmen's eyes filled with tears. But she smiled through them. David was dying. Michael. He knew it before the doctors told us. Husbands and wives can sense these things. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn notebook. This was David's journal. He wrote in it every night for 23 years of our marriage. Denver, Colorado. March. David Chen sat at his kitchen table, writing in his journal by lamplight. Carmen was already asleep. Upstairs. The house was quiet except for the soft scratch of his pen on paper. Outside, the world was changing. A virus called COVID-19 was spreading everywhere. Schools were closing, people were scared. David knew that his job as a teacher was about to get much harder. But tonight, he wasn't writing about the virus. He was writing about the letter. Earlier that day, Carmen had been organizing their bedroom closet. A small jewelry box had fallen from a high shelf, spilling its contents across the floor. David had helped her pick up earrings and necklaces and old bracelets from their wedding. That's when he saw the envelope. Yellow with age, sealed tight, with Carmen written in handwriting that wasn't David's. "What's this?" he had asked. Carmen had gone very still. Then she had told him the whole story, about Michael Jordan, about 6 weeks in 1987, about a promise she had made to never open the letter unless she doubted their love was real. David had listened without getting angry or jealous. He was a secure man who knew Carmen loved him completely. But he was also curious. Now, writing in his journal, David tried to put his thoughts into words. March 5th, Carmen told me about the letter today. I've been married to this woman for 29 years, and she can still surprise me. She loved someone before me, really loved him. That doesn't make me jealous. It makes me grateful. It means she knows what love feels like, and she chose to feel that way about me too. But this letter, I think she's carrying it like a burden. Some promise she made when she was 21 that doesn't make sense anymore. What if the letter contains something that would help her? What if this Michael Jordan wrote something she needs to hear? Not about love, but about who she was back then. About dreams she had that she's forgotten. Carmen gives so much to everyone else. Her students, our children, me. What if this letter is something just for her? I'm going to think about this more. But right now, I feel like that envelope is a wall between my wife and something important. And I don't like walls. Present day. Michael's office. Carmen closed David's journal. He wrote about the letter many times after that first night. He became fascinated with the idea that I was carrying someone else's words but had never let them speak to me. What did he think was in it? He didn't know. But David was wise about people. He said 37 years was long enough to honor a promise that might have been too big for a 21-year-old to make. Carmen turned to a page near the end of the journal. This is what he wrote 2 weeks before he died. She read aloud in a soft voice. Carmen is the strongest person I know. But she's also the most loyal. Sometimes those two things work against each other. She made a promise to someone she loved, and she's kept that promise even though it might be holding her back from something she needs. I've been thinking about this letter for 3 years now. What if it contains an apology she needs to hear? What if it has encouragement that would help her now? What if it's just the kind words of a young man who saw something special in my wife? If I don't make it through this heart surgery, I want Carmen to know some promises are meant to be kept, and some are meant to be outgrown. She needs to decide which kind this is. Michael felt his throat tighten. He never made it through the surgery? No. The heart attack happened the morning he was supposed to go to the hospital. He died holding my hand in our kitchen, still in his pajamas. They sat quietly for a moment. Michael thought about David Chen, a man he'd never met but was starting to respect deeply. Carmen, can I ask you something personal? Of course. When David was dying, did you think about opening the letter then? Carmen nodded slowly. Yes. In those terrible first months after he died, when I felt so lost and alone, there were nights when I would take the letter out and hold it, wondering if it contained some comfort I needed. But you didn't open it. No. The promise felt like the last thing connecting me to who I used to be. Before I was a wife, before I was a mother, before I was a principal. Back when I was just Carmen, a young teacher who believed she could change the world. Michael understood. And now I realize David was right. I've been carrying your words for 37 years without letting them speak to me. Maybe it's time to put that burden down. Carmen stood up and walked to Michael's window. She looked out at Charlotte, busy with afternoon traffic and people hurrying to meetings and appointments. There's something else, Michael. Something I haven't told you yet. What? Last year, my daughter Maria was going through a difficult time. Her job as a social worker was burning her out. She was ready to quit helping people altogether. She felt like nothing she did made a difference. Carmen turned back to face Michael. I told her about my 6 weeks with you. About how you showed me that even small acts of kindness could matter to someone famous and successful. About how I learned that everyone, no matter how strong they seem, needs someone to believe in them. What happened? She decided to stay in social work. She said if her mother could make a difference in the life of Michael Jordan, then maybe she could make a difference too. Michael felt something shift inside his chest. You used our story to help your daughter? Yes. And that's when I realized the letter wasn't just about us anymore. It was about all the ways that brief time in our lives had rippled outward, into my marriage, into my children, into the thousands of students I taught. Carmen sat back down across from Michael. David was right. Some secrets do get heavier with time, but some secrets are meant to be shared. I think it's time we found out which kind this is. Michael looked at the envelope. One more time. Carmen had carried his words for 37 years without reading them. She had used their story to inspire her daughter. She had honored her promise even when it would have been easier to break it. Now she was asking him to make the choice she had never been able to make. Okay, Michael said quietly. Let's see what I wanted you to know. His hands shook slightly as he began to open the envelope that had been sealed since night. Michael's fingers froze on the edge of the envelope. The paper made a soft crackling sound as he started to lift the flap. Then he stopped. Wait, he said, setting the letter back down on his desk. Carmen looked surprised. What's wrong? I need to understand something first. You said you came here because of David's journal and watching my documentary. But Carmen, that was 4 years ago. Why now? Why today in March? Carmen was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her hands, then back up at Michael. You're right, there's more to the story. Denver, Colorado. February. Carmen sat in her empty house, surrounded by boxes. After 4 years of living alone, she had finally decided to sell the place where she and David had been so happy. It was too big for one person. And every room held memories that sometimes felt too heavy to carry. Her children had come to help her pack. Maria drove down from Seattle, and James came up from Portland. For 3 days, they had sorted through 33 years of married life. Mom, what about this? Maria had asked, holding up an old photo album. It was full of pictures from Carmen's teaching years. Students who had graduated and gone to college. A award ceremony, where Carmen had been honored for her work with immigrant families. Christmas parties and classrooms decorated with children's artwork. Look at this one, James said, pointing to a picture of Carmen with a group of high school students. These kids are probably in their 30s now. Carmen smiled. Roberto became a doctor. Ana owns 3 restaurants. Miguel teaches kindergarten. You changed their lives, Maria said. We changed each other's lives, Carmen corrected. That's how teaching works. As they packed, Carmen's children kept asking about her future plans. Are you going to keep living in Denver? James asked. I don't know. Maybe it's time for a change. What kind of change? Maria asked. Carmen wasn't sure. At 62, she felt too young to retire completely, but too tired to start over in a new school system. She had savings and David's pension. She could go anywhere, do anything. But what did she want to do? That night, after her children went back to their hotel, Carmen sat alone in her bedroom. She was packing the contents of her jewelry box when her fingers found the familiar envelope. She had touched it thousands of times over the years, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she actually considered opening it. What would David say if he were here? She already knew the answer. He would say that some promises needed to be reconsidered when circumstances changed. Carmen opened her laptop and searched Michael Jordan's Charlotte Hornets. She found his business address easily. She also found articles about his charitable foundation and its work with underprivileged children. One article made her stop and read carefully. It was about a new educational center Jordan's foundation was planning to build in Charlotte. The center would serve children from low-income families, providing after-school programs, tutoring, and college preparation. We want to give kids the tools they need to succeed. Jordan was quoted as saying, "Education is the foundation of everything." Carmen stared at those words for a long time. This was the same man who had once been nervous around children at a charity event. The same young player who had asked her what vegetables kids didn't like. She clicked on more links and found dozens of articles about Jordan's educational giving, scholarships for minority students, new schools in poor neighborhoods, programs for kids whose families had just moved to America. It was the kind of work Carmen had been doing her whole career, just on a much bigger scale. That's when she made her decision. Present day. Michael's office. I decided to come here because of that article about your educational center, Carmen said. When I read about the work your foundation is doing, I realized something. What? You became exactly the kind of person I always hoped you would become. Not just successful, but someone who uses that success to help children. Someone who remembers that education matters. Michael felt something warm spread through his chest. You think so? I know so. That scared young man who didn't know how to talk to kids? He grew up to give away over $100 million to help children learn and grow. That's incredible, Michael. I had a good teacher, he said softly. Carmen smiled. We both did. We taught each other. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded newspaper clipping. This is the article that made me decide to come here. Michael took the clipping and read the headline, Jordan Foundation plans new educational center for at-risk youth. But Carmen, this still doesn't explain why you waited until now. This article is from 6 months ago. Carmen took a deep breath. Because 6 months ago, I was still David's widow. I was still the retired principal from Denver. I was still the woman who had built her whole life around keeping promises and being responsible. And now I'm someone who's ready to start a new chapter. Maria and James are grown and successful. My house is sold. I don't have a job or a mortgage or anyone depending on me. For the first time in my adult life, I'm completely free to choose what comes next. Michael understood. And you chose to come here. I chose to close old chapters properly so I could start new ones. David was right. Some secrets do get heavier with time. I've been carrying your letter for 37 years. It's time to either read it or give it back to you and let you decide what to do with it. Carmen leaned forward in her chair. But there's something else, Michael. Something I realized when I read about your educational center. What? Maybe I didn't come here just to return a letter. Maybe I came here because two people who both spent their lives helping children should meet again and see if they still have work to do together. Michael felt his heart skip a beat. Together? Not romantically, Carmen said quickly. Those days are long past. But as people who share the same values, people who understand that education can change everything for a kid who needs a chance. She gestured toward the newspaper clipping. You're building an educational center. I just spent 40 years learning how to help disadvantaged children succeed. Maybe there's a reason our paths are crossing again. Michael looked at the letter, then at Carmen, then back at the letter. You want to work together? I want to explore the possibility. But first, I think we need to open that envelope and deal with the past before we can think about the future. Michael nodded slowly. Carmen was right. Whatever his 24-year-old self had written, whatever secrets or feelings or promises were locked in that letter, they needed to face them together. He picked up the envelope one more time. This time, his hands didn't shake. "Ready?" he asked. Michael carefully tore open the envelope and pulled out 2 sheets of paper covered in his own youthful handwriting. After nearly 4 decades, Michael Jordan's secrets were finally about to be revealed. Michael unfolded the 2 pieces of paper slowly. The handwriting was definitely his, but younger and less careful than it was now. The ink had faded to a light blue, but the words were still clear. He looked up at Carmen. "Do you want me to read it out loud? If you're comfortable with that." Michael cleared his throat and began to read. "Dear Carmen, if you are reading this letter, it means you doubted what we had together. Please don't doubt it. These past 6 weeks have been the most real part of my life. I know our worlds are different. I know my life is getting crazy with basketball and fame and all that stuff. But with you, I remember who I really am underneath all of it." Michael paused. His voice had gotten softer as he read. Carmen was listening carefully, her hands folded in her lap. "Should I keep going?" he asked. "Yes." Michael continued reading. "You probably think I'm just some basketball player who will forget about you as soon as you leave Chicago. But Carmen, I want you to know something. You changed me. You showed me what it means to care about something bigger than myself. When I watched you with those kids at the school, I saw what real purpose looks like. You weren't trying to impress anyone or get anything for yourself. You just wanted to help them learn and grow. That's beautiful. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about making a difference. About how teaching one child to read can change everything for that kid's future. I never thought about success that way before." Carmen's eyes were getting wet, but she nodded for Michael to continue. "Here's the thing I'm scared to tell you in person. Sometimes I lie awake at night worrying that fame is going to change me into someone I don't like, someone who only cares about winning games and making money. But then I think about you in your classroom, helping kids who don't have much hope. And I think maybe I could use whatever success comes my way to do something like that too. Something that really matters. I don't know what that looks like yet. Maybe scholarships or schools or programs for kids who need chances. I'm not smart about that stuff like you are. But I want to learn." Michael stopped reading. His throat felt tight. "There's more," Carmen said gently. "I know. This next part, I remember writing this part. I was crying when I wrote it." Michael took a deep breath and continued. "Carmen, I love you. I know we only had 6 weeks, and I know we're too young and our lives are too different. But I love the person I am when I'm with you. I love how you see the world. I love how you believe in people. I'm going to miss you every day. But I'm also going to try to be the kind of person you would be proud to know. If I become successful, really successful, I promise I'll remember what you taught me about helping others. This might sound crazy, but I feel like you're going to be part of everything good I do for the rest of my life. Even if we never see each other again, you'll be there in every choice I make about whether to be selfish or generous. Thank you for 6 weeks of being loved the right way. Thank you for showing me what really matters. I hope you help thousands of kids learn to believe in themselves. Love always, Michael." The office was completely quiet when Michael finished reading. Carmen had tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "What promise?" "You said you would use your success to help others. You said you would remember what I taught you. Michael, you've given away over $100 million to education programs. You kept a promise you made to someone you dated for 6 weeks." Michael felt something break open inside his chest. For 37 years, he had been making charitable donations and funding educational programs. He had told himself it was just the right thing to do. He had told reporters it was about giving back to the community. But now, hearing his own words from 1987, he realized the truth. Every scholarship he had funded, every school he had helped build, every program he had supported, it had all started with Carmen Rodriguez in her tiny apartment, showing him what it meant to care about something bigger than himself. "I didn't remember," he said quietly. "I mean, I remembered you. I remembered how I felt about you. But I didn't remember making that promise to myself." "Your heart remembered," Carmen said. "Even if your mind forgot." Michael looked at the letter again, then at Carmen. This woman had kept his words safe for 37 years. She had honored a promise she made when she was 21 years old. And now she had brought the letter back to him at exactly the moment when he needed to understand his own motivation. "Carmen, there's something I need to tell you." "What?" The educational center we're planning to build in Charlotte. The one you read about in the newspaper. I've been struggling with the design. We have the money and the land, but I haven't been sure what kind of programs to include. Carmen leaned forward. What kind of kids will it serve? Kids from low-income families. Kids whose parents don't speak English. Kids who are behind in school and need extra help. Carmen's eyes lit up. That's exactly the kind of work I've been doing my whole career. I know. And that's why I think you coming here today isn't just about returning a letter. I think you're here because we still have work to do together. Carmen was quiet for a moment, thinking. What are you asking me, Michael? I'm asking if you would consider moving to Charlotte and helping me design this educational center. Not as a favor to an old friend, but as the expert you are. I need someone who understands how to reach kids who have been left behind by the system. Carmen looked around Michael's office again. The trophies and awards suddenly seemed less important than the newspaper clipping about the educational center that sat on his desk. You really want me to help? Carmen, I've been trying to figure out how to make this center work for 2 years. In the last hour, talking to you about your experience with immigrant kids and disadvantaged families, I've learned more than I learned in months of meetings with consultants. Michael stood up and walked around his desk. He sat in the chair next to Carmen instead of across from her. That scared young man who wrote this letter promised he would use his success to help kids. But he also promised he would learn from you about what really matters. Maybe it's time for both of those promises to come true. Carmen looked at the letter in Michael's hands, then at his face. This is a big decision, Michael. Moving here, starting over again at my age. I know, and I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm just asking you to think about it. Carmen was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. Can I see the plans for the educational center? Michael smiled. I was hoping you would ask. Michael walked to a large cabinet behind his desk and pulled out a thick folder filled with architectural drawings and planning documents. He spread them across the conference table in the corner of his office. This is what we have so far, he said, gesturing to the papers. Carmen stood up and walked over to look at the plans. The drawings showed a large modern building with classrooms, computer labs, a library, and recreational spaces. It's beautiful, she said, studying the detailed sketches. How many children would it serve? About 500 kids a day, after-school programs, summer camps, tutoring, college prep. We want to catch kids early and stay with them through high school graduation. Carmen traced her finger along the floor plan. These classrooms are well designed. But Michael, I have some concerns. What kind of concerns? Carmen sat down at the conference table and pulled one of the drawings closer to her. This is a wonderful building. It will cost millions of dollars. But buildings don't teach children. People do. Michael sat down across from her. What do you mean? I mean, you could have the most expensive facility in the world, but if you don't have the right staff and the right programs, it won't work. I've seen plenty of fancy schools that failed because they didn't understand their students. That's exactly why I need your help. Carmen looked at Michael carefully. Before we talk about my help, I need to ask you something honest. Okay, why do you really want me involved in this project? Is it because you think I'm the best person for the job, or is it because you feel guilty about how things ended between us 37 years ago? Michael was quiet for a long moment. It was a fair question, and Carmen deserved an honest answer. Both, he said finally. Carmen nodded. At least you're being truthful. Carmen, yes, I feel guilty about letting you go without trying harder to make our relationship work. But that's not why I want you here. I want you here because in one afternoon, you've asked better questions about this project than my consultants have asked in 2 years. What kind of questions? Like what kind of kids will we serve? Like how to reach parents who don't speak English. Like how to make children feel safe and valued. The consultants talk about square footage and technology. You talk about the actual children. Carmen picked up another drawing. This one showing the proposed computer lab. Michael, can I be completely honest with you about something? Of course. I'm scared. Michael looked surprised. Of what? Of this whole situation. Of you. Of this job offer. Of the idea of starting over at 62 years old. Carmen set down the drawing and looked directly at Michael. For 37 years, I've had a very stable life. I married a good man, raised 2 children, built a career helping kids. It was predictable and safe and meaningful. That sounds like a good life. It was a good life, but it was also a careful life. I always made responsible choices. I never took big risks. I stayed in Denver for 40 years because it was sensible. Michael understood, and coming to Charlotte would be a risk. A huge risk. I would be leaving everything I know to work with someone I haven't seen in nearly 4 decades. Someone who's now one of the most famous people in the world. Carmen stood up and walked back to the window. Michael, you live in a different universe than I do. Private jets, bodyguards, people who want things from you every day. I live in a world of grading papers and parent-teacher conferences. Is that what you're worried about? The fame thing? Partly. But mostly I'm worried about disappointing you. Michael stood up and joined her at the window. How could you possibly disappoint me? What if I'm not as good at this as you think I am? What if I can't design programs that work for your foundation? What if I move here and fail? Michael was quiet for a moment, thinking about what Carmen had said. Her fears were real and reasonable. Carmen, can I tell you what I'm scared of? What? I'm scared that without you, this educational center will just be another expensive building that doesn't really help kids. I'm scared that I'll mess up the most important project I've ever worked on. He turned to face her. I've built a business empire, but I don't know how to build a program that changes children's lives. You do. You've been doing it for 40 years. Carmen looked at him. But what if we can't work together? What if too much has changed since now? Then we'll figure it out as we go. Carmen, I'm not asking you to marry me or be my best friend. I'm asking you to use your expertise to help disadvantaged kids get better opportunities. That's what you've always cared about most. Carmen walked back to the conference table and looked at the building plans again. These kids you want to serve, where will they come from? East Charlotte, mostly. Low-income neighborhoods where the schools are struggling. A lot of the families are immigrants from Latin America. Carmen's eyes lit up slightly. Like the kids I worked with in Denver. Exactly like the kids you worked with in Denver. Kids whose parents work multiple jobs to make ends meet. Kids who are smart and capable but don't always get the support they need. Carmen picked up a drawing of the proposed library. What about the staff? Who would run the day-to-day operations? That's another thing I need help figuring out. I know we need teachers and counselors and program coordinators, but I don't know how to find the right people or how to train them properly. You would need people who understand the community. People who speak Spanish and know how to work with families who might be nervous about getting involved. Michael smiled. See? This is exactly what I mean. You've been here for 2 hours and you already understand things my consultants never figured out. Carmen was quiet for several minutes, studying the plans and thinking about what Michael had said. Finally, she spoke. If I were to consider this, and I'm just saying if, what would my role be exactly? Director of Educational Programs. You would design the curriculum, hire the teaching staff, develop the family outreach programs. You would basically create everything that happens inside this building. Carmen felt her heart beat faster. It was exactly the kind of work she had always loved, but on a much larger scale than she had ever imagined. How long would you need me to commit? Honestly, 5 years minimum. It takes time to build programs that really work. But Carmen, I hope you would stay longer than that. 5 years. Carmen would be 67 when the commitment ended. Old enough to really retire, but young enough to see the fruits of her work. I need time to think about this, she said. How much time? Carmen looked around Michael's office one more time. At the trophies and awards, at the photos with celebrities and presidents, at the business documents that represented millions of dollars. Then she looked at the building plans for the educational center. At drawings of classrooms where children would learn, library where they would read, computer labs where they would prepare for their futures. Give me 2 weeks, she said. I need to go home and really think about this decision. Michael nodded. That's fair. But Carmen? Yes? Whatever you decide. Thank you for bringing me that letter today. Reading my own words from 1987, it reminded me why this work matters so much. Carmen smiled. Thank you for keeping the promises you made to a 21-year-old teacher you barely knew. As Carmen gathered her purse and prepared to leave, both she and Michael knew that everything had changed. The letter had been opened, the secrets had been revealed, and now they faced a choice about their future. Would Carmen be brave enough to take the biggest risk of her life at 62 years old? 2 weeks later, Carmen sat in her rental car outside Michael's office building in Charlotte. She had driven from Denver, taking 5 days to cross the country, thinking about her decision with every mile. The passenger seat was filled with folders and notebooks, research she had done about Charlotte's schools, demographics of the East Charlotte neighborhoods, and ideas she had written down during her long drive. She had also brought something else. A small wooden box that had belonged to her mother. Inside the box were letters from former students, thank you notes from parents, and awards she had received over her 40-year career. Reminders of why she had become a teacher in the first place. Carmen took a deep breath and walked into the building. Jennifer, Michael's assistant, smiled when she saw her. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Jordan has been hoping you would come back. Is he available? He cleared his whole afternoon for you. Go right up. Michael was standing by his window when Carmen entered his office. He turned around quickly, and she could see hope and nervousness in his face. You came back, he said. And Carmen set her purse and folders on his desk. Then she pulled out a single piece of paper from her notebook. I have some conditions, she said. Michael's face broke into a huge smile. You're saying yes. I'm saying maybe. But first, you need to hear what I require. Michael sat down across from his desk, giving Carmen his full attention. Agreed. Second condition. No publicity. I don't want to be featured in newspaper articles or interviews about our personal history. This project should be about the children we're helping, not about us. Michael nodded. That makes sense. Third condition. I want to hire my own staff. People who understand the community we'll be serving. People who speak Spanish and know how to work with immigrant families. Whatever you need. Carmen looked at the next item on her list. Fourth condition. I want to visit successful programs in other cities before we finalize our plans. I want to see what works and what doesn't. We can arrange that. Carmen set down her notes and looked directly at Michael. Last condition. I need you to promise me that if this doesn't work out, if we can't work together professionally, we'll end the partnership with respect and friendship. I don't want to lose our reconnection over business disagreements. Michael was quiet for a moment. Carmen, that's important to you? Very important. We've both learned that relationships matter more than projects. I don't want to risk our friendship for any job, even one that means a lot to me. I promise. If we can't make the professional partnership work, we'll stay friends regardless. Carmen smiled. Then yes, Michael. I'll move to Charlotte and help you build this educational center. Michael stood up and hugged her. It was the first time they had embraced since night. Thank you, he said. I know this is a big risk for you. It is. But I realized something during my drive here. What? I've spent 40 years playing it safe, making careful, responsible decisions. But you know what? Those careful decisions led me to help thousands of children. Maybe it's time to see what one big, risky decision could accomplish. Michael stepped back and looked at Carmen with admiration. What changed your mind? Carmen walked over to the conference table where the building plans were still spread out. I kept thinking about those kids in East Charlotte who need help. Kids like the ones I worked with in Denver, but more of them. And I thought about your letter. My letter? You wrote that you wanted to learn how to help children the way I did. Well, here's your chance. And here's my chance to help you do it on a scale I never imagined possible. Carmen picked up one of the architectural drawings. But Michael, I need you to understand something about what we're really taking on. What do you mean? Building programs that truly help disadvantaged children isn't just about good intentions and nice facilities. It's hard work that takes years to show results. There will be kids we can't reach, parents who don't trust us, staff members who burn out. Michael sat down at the conference table. I understand it won't be easy. Do you? Because when you were playing basketball, you could see results immediately. Make a shot, win a game, earn a championship. Education doesn't work that way. Sometimes you work with a child for months before you see any progress. Carmen sat down across from him. And sometimes you help a kid learn to read, and they go on to college and become a doctor, but you don't find out about it until 20 years later. Like the students whose letters you showed me. Exactly. The rewards in education are often delayed and invisible. Are you prepared for that kind of work? Michael thought about Carmen's question. In basketball, he had always been impatient for results. He wanted to win every game, improve every season, dominate immediately. But his charitable giving over the years had taught him something different. He had funded scholarships for students he would never meet, built schools in neighborhoods he rarely visited, supported programs whose impact he would never directly see. Carmen, I've been learning patience through my foundation work for 15 years now. I know we won't change every child's life, but if we can help even 100 kids get better opportunities, isn't that worth it? Carmen smiled. 100 kids would be amazing. But Michael, if we do this right, we could help thousands of children over the years. Kids who grow up to be teachers and doctors and business owners. Kids who have their own children and teach them that education matters. Like you did with your own children. Like we can do together with all of these children. Michael looked at the building plans with new eyes. Instead of seeing a construction project, he saw classrooms full of young faces. Children learning to read, teenagers preparing for college, families discovering new possibilities. When can you start, he asked. I need a month to tie up loose ends in Denver and find a place to live here. But Michael, I want to start visiting those other programs right away. I want to see what's working in Houston and Atlanta and Phoenix before we make any final decisions about our design. Whatever you need. Money is not an issue. Carmen pulled out a folder from her stack of research. Actually, it is an issue. Not because we don't have enough money, but because we have too much. Michael looked confused. Too much money? Michael, you're planning to spend $12 million on this building. That's more than most schools spend on their entire operations for several years. Is that bad? What do they have? They have passionate teachers who know their students personally. They have programs that connect with families and communities. They have consistent support that lasts for years, not just months. Carmen pointed to one of her research sheets. There's a program in San Antonio that operates out of a converted warehouse. It's helped over 3,000 kids graduate from high school and go to college. Their total annual budget is less than what we're planning to spend on our computer lab. Michael studied Carmen's research. So you think we're spending too much on the building? I think we need to be smarter about how we spend the money. Yes, we need a good facility. But we also need to budget for staff salaries, ongoing programs, family support services, and long-term sustainability. Michael realized that Carmen was already thinking like the director of this project. She wasn't just accepting his job offer, she was taking ownership of their mission. Carmen, I want you to redesign this whole project, if you think that's what it needs. Are you sure? You've already hired architects and contractors. I'm sure. If you think we can help more children by changing our plans, then let's change our plans. Carmen looked at Michael with new respect. You really are serious about this, aren't you? Completely serious. Carmen, you're the expert. I want you to build the program you think will work best. Carmen gathered up the building plans and put them back in their folder. Then let's start over. Let's visit those programs in other cities, learn what works, and design something that will truly serve these children for decades to come. Michael stood up and shook Carmen's hand formally. Welcome to Charlotte, Director Rodriguez. Carmen laughed. Thank you, Chairman Jordan. I think this is going to be an interesting partnership. As they shook hands, both Michael and Carmen realized they had just committed to something much bigger than either of them had originally imagined. They weren't just building an educational center. They were building a legacy that could change thousands of lives. But first, they still had one more revelation to uncover from that 37-year-old letter. As Michael and Carmen celebrated their new partnership, Michael noticed something. The letter from 1987 was still lying on his desk, but there appeared to be more pages underneath the two he had read earlier. Carmen, I think there's more to the letter. Carmen looked surprised. More? You read 2 full pages. Michael walked back to his desk and carefully lifted the pages he had already read. Underneath, there was a 3rd page, written in different ink. The handwriting was still his, but it looked like it had been added later. This looks like I wrote it on a different day, Michael said, studying the page. What does it say? Michael began to read the 3rd page to himself. As he read, his face changed. His eyes grew wide, his mouth opened slightly in shock. Michael, what is it? Carmen asked, walking over to him. Michael looked up at her with an expression she had never seen before. Part amazement, part disbelief, part something that looked almost like fear. Carmen, you need to sit down. Why? What does it say? Please, just sit down. Carmen sat back down in the chair across from his desk. Her heart was beating faster now. Michael held the third page carefully, like it might dissolve if he handled it too roughly. This was written 3 days after the first 2 pages. 3 days after our goodbye dinner. What happened 3 days later? Michael took a deep breath. 3 days later, I got a phone call that changed everything. My agent called to tell me that a major shoe company wanted to sign me to an endorsement deal. A huge deal that would make me more money than my basketball salary. Carmen remembered. Nike? Yes. The call that led to Air Jordan shoes, to becoming a global brand, to everything that came after. Michael looked at the third page again. Carmen, listen to what I wrote that night. He began to read. Carmen, I'm adding to this letter because something incredible just happened. Nike wants to sign me to a deal worth millions of dollars. Millions. More money than I ever dreamed of having. My agent is going crazy with excitement. Everyone is telling me this could make me one of the richest athletes in the world. But all I can think about is what you said about using success to help others. About how real purpose comes from making a difference in people's lives. So I'm making you a promise, Carmen. A promise I'm writing down so I can never forget it or take it back. Michael paused. His hands were shaking slightly. Keep reading, Carmen said quietly. I promise that whatever money comes from this Nike deal, I will give half of it away to help children get better educations. Not someday when I'm old and retired. Starting immediately. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I don't care if my accountants tell me I'm making a mistake. You showed me that helping kids matters more than having fancy cars or big houses. Carmen, you probably will never see this promise, because I hope you never doubt what we had together. But if you do read this someday, I want you to know that everything good I do with my success starts with the 6 weeks you taught me how to really care about other people. This Nike money, it's gonna be huge. And half of it is gonna kids who need chances. That's my promise to you and to myself. I wish I could call you and tell you this in person. But you said clean breaks are better. You're probably right. Just know that somewhere in Denver there's a teacher who changed the life of a basketball player in ways she'll never understand. Michael finished reading and set the page down gently. Carmen was staring at him with tears streaming down her face. Michael, she whispered. The Nike deal made me hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. And you gave away half? Michael nodded slowly. Not all at once, but over 37 years? Yes. More than half, actually. Every major endorsement deal I signed, every business investment that paid off, every dollar that came from my success. I kept thinking about that promise. Carmen put her hand over her mouth. You've given away over $100 million to education because of a promise you made to me in a letter I never read? Carmen, it's more than that. Way more. Michael walked to his computer and pulled up his foundation's website. He showed Carmen page after page of programs they had funded. Schools in Chicago, scholarships for minority students, after-school programs in dozens of cities. The Jordan Foundation has given away over $200 million since 1990. Almost all of it to education. And it all started with that Nike deal. And the promise I made to you. Carmen was speechless. She sat staring at the computer screen, looking at photo after photo of children who had been helped by Michael's charitable giving. But Michael, you said you didn't remember making that promise. Michael sat down next to Carmen. Do you understand what this means? I'm not sure. It means that your 6 weeks with me didn't just change my life. It changed the lives of thousands of children over 4 decades. Kids who got scholarships to college. Kids who attended schools we helped build. Kids who participated in programs we funded. Carmen looked at the photos on the screen. Graduation ceremonies. Award presentations. Smiling children in new classrooms. All of these kids, she started to say. All of them were helped because a 21-year-old teacher in Chicago showed a scared basketball player what it meant to really care about something bigger than yourself. Carmen began to cry harder. Not sad tears, but tears of overwhelming emotion. Carmen, you didn't just keep my letter safe for 37 years. You kept a promise that helped educate thousands of children. You were part of every scholarship we gave, every school we built, every program we created. Carmen stood up and walked back to the window. She looked out at Charlotte, thinking about all the children in the city who might benefit from the educational center they were planning to build together. "I had no idea," she said finally. "How could you? You kept your promise never to open the letter." "But Carmen, that promise you kept, it kept me honest for 4 decades. Every time I was tempted to be selfish with my success, I remembered that somewhere you were keeping my words safe. Words that held me accountable to be better." Michael joined her at the window. "Do you know what the most amazing part is?" "What?" "You spent your whole career helping maybe 1,000 kids learn and grow. That was incredible work that mattered deeply. But because of those 6 weeks with me, you also helped thousands more children you never met in cities you never visited, through programs you never even knew existed." Carmen turned to face Michael. "That's not possible." "It's not only possible, it's true. Every child who benefited from Jordan Foundation programs was helped partly because of you. Because you showed me what real purpose looks like." They stood together at the window, looking out at the city where they would soon be working together to help even more children. "Michael, I don't know what to say. Say you understand now why I needed you to come back. Say you understand that this educational center we're building isn't just a new project. It's the continuation of work that started 37 years ago when you taught me that success without service is empty." Carmen nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand that their reunion wasn't just about closing an old chapter or starting a new partnership. It was about recognizing the invisible threads that had connected their separate lives for nearly 4 decades. "The children we're going to help in Charlotte," she said quietly, "will be helped because of promises we both kept. Me to use my success for others, you to honor the power of that promise by never breaking your word. A mission we've been carrying out separately," Michael agreed. "And now we get to carry it out together." "Michael, I need to ask you something important. Anything. Do you really believe that our 6 weeks together in 1987 led to all of this charitable work? Or are you just being kind to an old friend?" Michael sat down and looked at Carmen seriously. "I believe it completely, and I can prove it." He walked to a file cabinet and pulled out a thick folder marked Foundation History. Inside were decades of documents, photos, and records. "Look at this," he said, showing Carmen a newspaper clipping from 1991. The headline read, "Jordan donates $1 million to Chicago schools." Carmen read the article. In it, Michael was quoted saying, "I believe every child deserves a chance to learn and grow. Education is the foundation that makes everything else possible." "Those are almost the exact words you used with me in 1987, Michael said, "about how education gives kids the foundation they need." He showed her another clipping from 1995. "Jordan opens Learning Center in North Carolina." Again, Michael was quoted talking about giving children chances and opportunities. "Michael, you could have gotten those ideas anywhere. Could I? Look at this." Michael pulled out a photo from 1993. It showed him visiting a classroom full of young Hispanic children in Los Angeles. He was sitting on the floor, just like he had done with the kids at Lincoln Elementary School in Chicago. "Every program I've ever funded, Carmen, has focused on the same kids you worked with. Disadvantaged children, kids from immigrant families, kids who needed someone to believe in them." Carmen studied the photo. "You remembered. I remembered everything. The way you talked about your students like they were your own children. The way you stayed after school to help kids with homework. The way you learned Spanish so you could talk to their parents. Michael, this is incredible, but why didn't you ever try to contact me? Why didn't you tell me what you were doing?" "Because you asked for a clean break. And because part of me was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Michael was quiet for a moment. "Afraid that if I contacted you, you might think I was doing the charitable work just to impress you. I wanted to do it because it was right, not because I was trying to win back an old girlfriend." Carmen understood. "So you did it quietly. For 37 years. But Carmen, there's something else you should know." "What is this?" "The founding document for the Jordan Educational Foundation. Look at the date." Carmen looked at the paper. It was dated May 15, 1987. Just 2 weeks after she had left Chicago. "You started your foundation 2 weeks after we said goodbye?" "I started it the day I got the Nike deal. I wanted to make sure the promise I wrote in that letter became legally binding." Carmen sat down heavily in her chair. "You created a legal foundation based on a promise you made to someone you had dated for 6 weeks? I created a legal foundation based on the most important lesson anyone ever taught me, that success without service is meaningless. Michael sat down across from her. Carmen, do you understand what happened here? You didn't just influence my thinking, you helped create an organization that has been changing children's lives for nearly 40 years. Carmen looked around Michael's office with new eyes. The trophies and awards suddenly seemed less important than the folder full of foundation documents. How many children do you think we've helped? She asked quietly. Directly, through scholarships, schools and programs, probably 20,000 kids over the years. 20,000. But indirectly, kids who were taught by teachers we helped train, or who attended schools we helped improve, or who were inspired by kids we helped succeed. Probably hundreds of thousands. Carmen felt dizzy. Hundreds of thousands of children? Carmen, you were a teacher for 40 years. You know how it works? You help one child learn to read, and that child grows up to become a teacher who helps hundreds of other children learn to read. Michael stood up and walked to a world map hanging on his wall. It was covered with small pins marking locations of Jordan Foundation programs. We've funded educational programs in 12 countries, built schools in rural communities, provided clean water, so kids could attend school instead of walking miles to find water for their families. Carmen joined him at the map. All of this because of 6 weeks in Chicago? Carmen traced her finger across the map, touching pins in Mexico, Guatemala, Kenya, and the Philippines. I taught 5th grade in Denver, she said softly. I thought that was my contribution to the world. Teaching 5th grade in Denver was incredible. But Carmen, you also taught a basketball player in Chicago, and that lesson traveled around the world. They stood quietly, looking at the map and thinking about all the lives that had been touched by their brief connection decades earlier. Michael, I have a confession to make. What? Sometimes, over the years, I wondered if I had made a mistake. If I should have tried harder to make our relationship work. And now, Carmen smiled. Now I realize we had exactly the relationship we were supposed to have. 6 weeks that changed everything, followed by 37 years of carrying out the mission you wrote in that letter. Michael nodded. If we had stayed together, if we had gotten married and built a traditional life, none of this would have happened. I would have been a basketball wife instead of a teacher. You might have gotten distracted from your charitable work by trying to balance a marriage with your career. Instead, we both followed our separate paths and ended up serving the same purpose. Carmen walked back to Michael's desk and picked up the letter one more time. You know what's amazing? I kept this letter sealed for 37 years because I promised I would only open it if I doubted our love was real. And you never doubted. Never. Even when David was dying, even when I felt completely alone, I never doubted that what we had was real and important. Michael smiled. And because you kept that faith, you helped me keep faith with the promises I made. We kept faith with each other without even knowing it. Carmen folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. What are you doing? Michael asked. I'm giving this back to you. It's your letter, with your promises. You've kept those promises for 37 years. You should have the proof. Michael took the envelope, but didn't put it away. Instead, he placed it in the center of his desk next to the building plans for their new educational center. No, he said. This letter belongs to both of us now. It's the foundation document for everything we're going to build together. Carmen looked at the letter sitting next to the building plans. Past and future side by side. 20,000 children helped so far, she said. And thousands more to come, Michael replied. Through the educational center we're building. Through all the work we'll do together. Carmen extended her hand to Michael. Partner? Michael shook her hand firmly. Partners. In the most important work either of us will ever do. As they shook hands, both Carmen and Michael understood that they had come full circle. A letter written in sadness and separation had become the foundation for joy and collaboration. A goodbye had become a new beginning. And somewhere in Charlotte, hundreds of children were about to have their lives changed by a promise made in Chicago 37 years ago. 6 months later, Carmen stood in the empty shell of what would soon become the Jordan Rodriguez Educational Center. Construction workers moved around her, installing windows and hanging drywall. The sound of hammers and power tools filled the air, but Carmen could already see past the construction chaos. She could picture children running through these hallways, sitting in these classrooms, reading books in the library that was taking shape in the corner. Thinking about Maria Elena Gonzalez.
Who's that?
Carmen smiled. A 7-year-old girl I met yesterday during our community meetings. She lives 3 blocks from here with her grandmother. She speaks perfect Spanish and broken English, and she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. Sounds like she could use what we're building here. She's exactly why we're building this. Maria Elena, and about 400 other kids just like her in this neighborhood. Michael looked around the construction site. In 6 months, Carmen had completely redesigned their plans. The building was smaller now, but smarter. More classrooms, bigger family meeting spaces, a commercial kitchen for cooking classes and community dinners. Any regrets about the changes? Michael asked. None. The original plans were beautiful, but they were designed by people who had never actually worked with these families. This building is designed by someone who has... Carmen pointed to different areas as she talked. Tutoring rooms small enough for one-on-one help. Computer lab with software in both English and Spanish. Art studio where kids can express themselves while they're learning English. What about the family programs? That's the most important part. Carmen gestured toward a large open space near the entrance. Community room where parents can take English classes while their kids are in after-school programs. Counseling offices where families can get help with immigration questions or social services. Michael had watched Carmen work for 6 months now, and he was constantly amazed by her expertise. She thought about details that never would have occurred to him, like making sure the family restrooms had changing tables for parents who brought babies to meetings, or ensuring that all the signs in the building would be in both English and Spanish. Carmen, I have some news. Good news or complicated news? Carmen's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. How many students? About 50 kids to start, 3rd through 8th grade. Kids who are behind in reading and math. Perfect. We'll have them caught up to grade level within 2 years. Michael laughed. You sound very confident. Carmen walked over to what would soon be the main classroom. You know what the most important thing is? What? Consistency. These kids need to know that we'll be here every day, that we won't give up on them, that we'll keep trying even when they're having bad days. Michael understood. Like you never gave up on keeping my letter safe. Exactly like that. Some promises take time to fulfill. They walked through the rest of the building, Carmen explaining her vision for each space. Michael listened, asking questions and taking notes. Over the months, their working relationship had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Carmen was clearly the expert on education and community outreach. Michael handled the business side, the fundraising and the connections with other organizations. They made decisions together, but they respected each other's areas of expertise. Michael, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Are you happy? I mean, really happy with how your life turned out? Michael thought about the question seriously. I'm happier now than I've been in years. Building this center with you, knowing that we're going to help so many kids, it feels more meaningful than anything I accomplished in basketball. Even more than winning championships? Championships were about proving I was the best. This is about helping other people become their best. There's no comparison. Carmen smiled. I feel the same way. Teaching in Denver was wonderful, but this feels bigger, like we're building something that will last long after we're gone. Speaking of lasting, I have something for you. Michael pulled a small, wrapped package from his jacket pocket. What is this? Open it. Carmen unwrapped the package carefully. Inside was a small silver frame containing a photo she had never seen before. It showed her and Michael with a group of children at the Lincoln Elementary School charity event in night. They were both young and smiling, surrounded by kids holding paper airplane. How did you get this? I hired a private investigator to track down the photographer from that event. Took him 3 months to find this picture. Carmen stared at the photo. We look so young. We were young. But look at our faces in this picture, Carmen. Look how happy we were working with those kids. Carmen studied the photo more carefully. Michael was right. Even at 24 and 21, their faces showed the same joy they felt now when talking about the educational center. We always belonged together in this work, she said quietly. Always. We just had to take a 37-year detour to get here. There's an inscription on the back. Carmen turned the frame over and read the words Michael had written. For Carmen, the teacher who changed everything, from your grateful student and partner in serving others. Michael, then were partners who taught each other the most important lesson of all, which is that love isn't just about the people you hold on to. Sometimes love is about the people you let go, so you can both become who you're meant to be. When they both have something important to give. Michael's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and smiled. What is it? Maria Elena's grandmother. She wants to know if we'll have Spanish classes for adults when we open. Carmen laughed. Tell her yes. And tell her we'll have childcare during the classes, so she can bring Maria Elena, already handled. I texted her back while you were talking. Carmen looked at Michael with admiration. You've learned a lot about community outreach in 6 months. I had a good teacher. As they prepared to leave the construction site, Carmen took one last look around. In 3 months, this space would be filled with children and families. Kids would be learning to read. Teenagers would be preparing for college. Parents would be taking English classes. All because a scared 24-year-old basketball player had promised a young teacher that he would use his success to help others. All because that teacher had kept his words safe for 37 years, even when she didn't know what they said. Ready to go? Michael asked. Almost. Carmen pulled out her phone and took a picture of the empty building. I want to remember this moment. Before it gets busy and complicated and wonderful. The calm before the storm? The quiet before the celebration. As they walked toward the parking lot, Michael asked, Carmen, do you think we would have been happy if we had stayed together in... Carmen considered the question seriously. I think we would have been happy for a while. But Michael, we were both too young to understand what we really wanted from life. And now we know that what we both wanted was to help children reach their potential. It just took us 37 years and 2 very different paths to figure out how to do it together. Like education? Like the future of these kids we're about to serve. Carmen got in her car and rolled down the window. See you tomorrow, partner. See you tomorrow. We've got 400 children counting on us. As Carmen drove away, Michael stood in the parking lot looking at the building that would soon change so many lives. He thought about the letter that had started it all, now framed and hanging in Carmen's new apartment in Charlotte. Tomorrow they would meet with more families, interview more potential staff members, and continue planning programs that would help children succeed. It was the work they were both meant to do together. The promise made in Chicago 37 years ago was about to become a reality in Charlotte. And hundreds of children were about to discover that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is an adult who believes in their potential. Sometimes the most powerful promises are the ones we keep without even remembering we made them. Sometimes letting someone go is the greatest act of love. And sometimes a letter kept sealed for 37 years holds the key to understanding our entire purpose in life. Where are you listening from right now? Drop your location in the comments below. We love connecting with our amazing listeners from around the world. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that small acts of kindness can have incredible consequences, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for many more inspiring stories just like this one. And don't keep this powerful message to yourself. Share this video with your friends and family. In a world that sometimes feels divided, stories like Carmen and Michael's remind us that love, service, and keeping our promises can literally change the world, one child at a time. Let's spread kindness and awareness together. Because you never know, your small act of sharing this story might inspire someone to make a promise that changes thousands of lives. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.